When people talk about the Amazon rainforest, it's often described as something distant, almost abstract, a massive green area on a map, a place full of exotic animals, dense trees, and rivers most of us will never see in person. It feels far away from daily life. But the reality is much more direct. What happens in the Amazon doesn't stay in the Amazon. It affects global weather, food systems, air quality, and long-term climate stability in ways that are measurable, practical, and already happening. To understand why the Amazon matters, it helps to start with what it actually does. The Amazon rainforest spans across 9 countries in South America and covers millions of square miles. It is the largest tropical rainforest on Earth. But its importance isn't just about size, it's about function. One of the most critical roles the Amazon plays is in regulating the planet's climate. Trees absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it. This process slows down the buildup of greenhouse gases that drive global warming. The Amazon stores an enormous amount of carbon, not just in its trees, but in its soil as well. When the forest is intact, it acts like a buffer, helping stabilize the climate. But when it's destroyed, that stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere. That means deforestation doesn't just remove a helpful system, it actively makes the problem worse. Another key function of the Amazon is how it moves water. The rainforest creates its own weather patterns. Trees release water vapor through a process called transpiration. This moisture rises into the atmosphere, forms clouds, and eventually falls as rain. This system doesn't just stay local. The Amazon helps drive rainfall patterns across South America and even influences weather in other parts of the world. Some scientists refer to this as flying rivers, streams of moisture moving through the air. When large sections of the forest are cut down, this system weakens. Less tree cover means less moisture released into the atmosphere. That leads to reduced rainfall, longer dry seasons, and increased risk of drought. So the Amazon is not just reacting to climate change, it's also shaping it. Beyond climate and water systems, the Amazon is one of the most biologically diverse places on Earth. It contains an estimated 10% of all known species. Many of these species exist nowhere else. This biodiversity isn't just about wildlife, it has practical implications. The Amazon has been a source of medicinal compounds used in modern medicine. Plants found there are studied for potential treatments for diseases, including cancer and infections. Losing biodiversity means losing options. It limits future discoveries that could directly impact human health. But despite all this, the Amazon is under constant pressure. The main driver of deforestation is not random, it's largely economic. Forest land is cleared for agriculture, especially cattle ranching and soy production. Logging, both legal and illegal, plays a role. Infrastructure projects like roads and dams open up previously remote areas, making them easier to exploit. In many cases, land is cleared by burning. Fires are set intentionally to remove vegetation quickly. These fires can spread beyond control, especially during dry seasons. The result is a cycle. Trees are removed, the land becomes drier, and the risk of future fires increases. Over time, this can push parts of the rainforest toward a tipping point where it can no longer sustain itself as a dense forest. Instead, it begins to transition into a more open, savanna-like environment. This shift would dramatically reduce its ability to store carbon and regulate rainfall. What makes this especially concerning is that the Amazon may be closer to that tipping point than previously thought. Some researchers suggest that if deforestation reaches a certain threshold combined with rising temperatures, large portions of the forest could undergo irreversible change. That's not a distant hypothetical scenario. It's a possibility within this century if current trends continue. So where does that leave people who live far from the Amazon? The connection is more direct than it might seem. Global supply chains link everyday products to deforestation. Beef, leather, soy, and even certain types of wood products can be connected to land cleared in the Amazon. These materials are exported worldwide. That means consumption patterns in one country can influence land use decisions in another. Climate impacts are shared globally. Changes in rainfall patterns can affect agriculture in multiple regions. Increased carbon emissions contribute to global temperature rise, which affects weather extremes, sea levels, and ecosystems everywhere. Even air quality can be affected. Large-scale fires in the Amazon release smoke and pollutants that can travel long distances, impacting health in nearby regions. There's also a human dimension that often gets overlooked. Millions of people live in the Amazon, including many indigenous communities. These groups have lived in and managed the forest for generations. Their knowledge of the ecosystem is detailed and practical. Research has shown that areas managed by indigenous communities often have lower rates of deforestation. In many cases, protecting indigenous land rights is one of the most effective ways to preserve the forest. But these communities are frequently under pressure. Land conflicts, illegal logging, and weak enforcement of environmental laws put both the forest and its people at risk. Understanding why the Amazon matters isn't just about ecology, it's also about governance, economics, and social systems. The next question is what can realistically be done? There is no single solution, but there are several approaches that have shown measurable impact. First, policy enforcement matters. Countries that contain parts of the Amazon have laws designed to limit deforestation. When enforcement is consistent, deforestation rates tend to drop. When enforcement weakens, rates increase. Second, supply chain transparency is critical. Companies that source materials from the region can implement systems to track where their products come from. This makes it easier to avoid sourcing from recently deforested land. Some companies have already committed to zero deforestation supply chains. The effectiveness of these commitments depends on monitoring and accountability. Third, supporting sustainable land use practices can reduce pressure on the forest. This includes agroforestry, which integrates trees with crops and livestock, and more efficient agricultural methods that increase yield without expanding into new areas. Fourth, protecting indigenous land rights has proven benefits. Legal recognition and enforcement of these rights can help maintain forest cover while supporting local communities. Finally, international cooperation plays a role. Climate agreements, financial incentives for conservation, and global awareness all contribute to how the Amazon is managed. For individuals, the impact may feel small, but it isn't irrelevant. Being aware of where products come from, supporting companies with transparent sourcing, and reducing demand for high-risk commodities can influence larger systems over time. More importantly, understanding the issue helps shift how it's treated politically and socially. Public awareness affects policy decisions. The Amazon rainforest is often framed as something to save, but that framing can be misleading. It suggests a one-time action, a fix that solves the problem. In reality, this is an ongoing management challenge. It requires consistent effort, coordination across countries, and balancing economic needs with environmental limits. The stakes are high because the Amazon is not easily replaceable. Once large sections are lost, they do not simply grow back in the same way. The ecological complexity takes decades, even centuries, to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all. And during that time, the global systems it supports are disrupted. So caring about the Amazon isn't about distant concern. It's about recognizing a system that directly supports global stability. It regulates climate, influences weather, supports biodiversity, and connects to global economies. Ignoring it doesn't make the impact disappear. It just delays the response. The Amazon's future is still being shaped right now by decisions made at local, national, and global levels. And those decisions, whether visible or not, affect far more than one region. They affect us all.